Hey, it's me, MarkyJoe, here to entertain you. Yes, it is my show. It exists. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it.
Yeah. So some of you might be aware that I've already played this submission, but the video for it is missing. That's because the video was not very good. And after some constructive feedback by Algid Flame, I decided to redo the video because the original video was not constructive, my live commentary was not very interesting, and I spent most of it just shit-talking FE4, which pissed a lot of people off. So without further ado, let's get into this. Click! So this submission was created by Darrman. I didn't really know him, but apparently he's part of the Fire Emblem universe community, and he knows how to use FE8. Which is cool, because FE8's gotten a lot of hacking done to the game. Like, it's the most ideal Fire Emblem hacking engine now, because there's been so much technology created for it. You can now implement skills, which is awesome. Like, that's one of the problems with GBA Fire Emblem, is that you couldn't, like, have skills aside from the ones that were pre-made in the game. And this submission actually shows off the skills, the skill system, which is cool. Now, about the submission itself, this opening cutscene, this submission is based on FE4, which is a game that I'm not particularly fond of. I think the story is good, but the gameplay did not rope me in when I played it, and I haven't finished it ever since. Also, Darrman failed to remove the events, the world map events, which is why we got all these random FE8 characters showing up on the screen. But yeah, this opening scene is just a summarization of the entirety of FE4 and what happened in it. It's not 100% like, it isn't particularly detailed, but really, what do you need? This submission more or less assumes that you know FE4 enough, and while I have watched a Let's Play of FE4 and FE5, and I've read some analysis blog entries made by Marcus Fodel, who you should totally check out, ultimately, I don't know a hell of a lot about FE4 because I haven't played it a whole bunch of times myself. So, pretty much all the jokes in this, or, well, the few jokes that there are going to fly completely over my head, and only the FE4 fans in my community will be able to truly appreciate this. So, Julius is just having a big old rant, a little cheesy rant where he's basically just talking to himself about how he's gonna kick the shit out of Seliph. How the what the fuck is up with Julius's hair? How does he get his bang, like his fucking bangs to be like 5 feet in front of him? FE4 does not have the best art, I'm sorry. Some of the art looks good. Like, I'd say that Tenny and Tail to You look pretty awesome, but then you got Julius and a good number, like, fucking Shaggle, who just looks fucking hilarious. Anyway, so what's the dealio with this submission? You're basically just fighting Seliph's army and killing him. It's a role reversal of FE4, where in that game you would fight Julius as Seliph and his army. In this one, you're using Julius and his army his army of warlords, rather, to kill Seliph and his buddies. Now, unfortunately, while that sounds cool in practice and shit, in theory, it's not quite that good in practice. Like, the execution was not very good for this. Mainly because, the enemy placement isn't very interesting. Some of the enemies rush you, while others stand in place and pose no threat, while others are just too weak or too strong. Like, Julius is extremely strong, and some of the enemy units, such as Seti, are strong as fuck. But that just means you just want to use the strong units to blaze through the other strong units and blaze through the weak units as well. The other thing is that there's a lot of design oversights in this submission as well. Like, what I'm doing is basically exploiting every tool the submission gives me. I'm using the Silent Staff to stop Seti from being a threat, because Seti has the whole Seti, which is a legendary tome that deals a shitload of damage and gives the user plus 20 speed, which makes him kind of impossible to beat. Not really, but he's fucking crazy. Luckily, because Julius has maxed out magic, and Seti does not have particularly high resistance, it's easy to just silence him so that he can't do anything at all. So there you go. Those are the main problems with the submission's gameplay. The enemy placement is not very interesting, and the balance is completely out of whack, and it clearly did not get a lot of playtesting. It did not get nearly enough. So I guess the other problem is that the cutscenes are kind of not there. Like, there's some cutscenes, like the opening cutscene and Julius's little weird monologue, and then the ending cutscene, but that's just about it. The rest of it is just death quotes of all the characters that you murder. So here's another thing. You get a Berserk Staff, and RagefestJoe, who is the strongest fucking swordmaster from FE4, well, aside from Shannon, is positioned right next to the boss. The goal of the chapter is to kill the boss. Guess what RagefestJoe goes after? The fucking boss. I mean, she goes after Lana first, who is, you know, Celice's wife. But the thing is that pulls her away from the rest of the enemies. So once she kills Lana, the only option of who to attack is Seliph. So she pretty much just spends the rest of the chapter just beating the living shit out of Seliph, who would otherwise be a huge problem because his weapon is really strong. Like, his Tearfing sword is really strong, and I think it has 100% crit. So you'd have to actually sacrifice one of your units to take down Seliph. Of course, don't quote me on that, because, I don't know. This submission's kind of weird in that some of the characters have, perfect hit rates. I mean, crit rates. And I think that has to do with the whole FE4 system of, if you use a weapon enough, you get 100% crit rate and stuff. But I haven't looked into it deeply enough, nor have I had to, really, in order to beat this submission. The most amusing thing about this submission is the character descriptions, which I will show off after this winning run. It shows off all, the author's commentary on, the various translations that all these characters have gotten over the years, whether a character was good or not, and so on and so forth. So it's fairly amusing. The other good thing about this submission is I kind of like pulling off this strategy. You know, just low turning it and with as few units as possible. So I'm just gonna mention a couple other small notes. Aside from Seti, who, I silence, the other threats are Shannon and Julia. Julia, because she has the legendary Nargatome, which gives her plus 20 in nearly all of her stats. And Shannon, because he's got the Balmung and will destroy the living shit out of you, and he's a swordmaster. Unfortunately, Shannon doesn't fucking move from his spot. He waits for you to get in his range, so he's not a threat whatsoever so long as you don't bug him. Julia is a bigger threat because she charges after you, but the thing is that she prefers to heal units or attack you with Nosferatu rather than attacking you with the Nargatome. So she ends up not doing anything threatening whatsoever, because I basically just exploit her AI by weakening one of the other enemies and then having her go and heal it. So pretty much all the difficulty is completely nullified when you've taken care of those three threats, because the rest of the units are too weak to really stop Julius, and your other units, while they're kind of meaningless, they could still kick the shit out of those dudes no problem. I wish I had more to say about this submission, but unfortunately there isn't a lot to say. It's basically just, kill Celice with your abusive staff usage and then win. It's worth noting that Darrman made this submission in within a week, so this was a rushed submission. I guess the only other thing to mention is that you guys might have noticed one of the paladins warped another paladin next to him. That's because that was Leaf, who is of the Master Knight class, which is a class in FE4 that can use all weapons in the game except for dark magic. So obviously the creator gave him a rescue staff. And I think that's all to say about the submission. So I just want to apologize. The last thing I want to do is I want to apologize for Darrman for the previous video. And I want to apologize to all my viewers for that previous video as well, because that video sucked. It was not constructive, and I made a whole video telling people to be more constructive, and I broke my own fucking rules. So if I ever do shit like that again, please let me know. Like, you guys gotta hold me accountable for my actions. I mean, you don't have to. That sounds like I'm commanding you to, but just like, if you care about my videos, just know that I care about your opinion and that you shouldn't be afraid to tell me what you think. Holy cow, I'm getting tired of doing these outro things. Alright, so you know the dealio. Go to MarkyJoe.com, go to the Ragefest 5 section, and then you can download this hack to play for yourself, develop your own opinion. Maybe you think it's a masterpiece. It's up to you. And bye.
And down he walks the road, brow saying, what the hell, you got MarkyJoe. These ambush bombs just don't do it for me. In this map I should be caught by 3.